So, I always say give credit where credit is due, and my God, has the Daily Mail actually done something good. An actual good article about this whole Tommy Robinson thing, and this is by Richard Pendlebury. Hang on, it's, EDL leader Tommy Robinson is no martyr, but a racist thug who got what he deserved. Holy shit! This is from the Daily Mail. So when the Daily Mail is calling out for you to being racist, then yeah, I don't think there's any way you can defend this guy, yet people still do. So, Tommy Robinson is back in jail. Perversely, for him, this is a kind of triumph. Until his incarceration for contempt of court last week, this football hooligan turned anti-Muslim rabble-rouser and founder of the far-right English Defence League has been fading into an angry obscurity. When Twitter banned him earlier this year for apparently breaching its hateful conduct policy, he ranted that the establishment was out to silence him. Yeah, the UK government does not control Twitter, Tommy. I'm sorry, so I'll show you. Let's call him his real name, Stephen. So sorry, Stephen. So the establishment was out to silence him. Yet few took any notice. That has changed with his imprisonment. Today, a dubious alliance of individuals and interest groups from across the globe, many whom had not heard of Robinson before today, consider him to be a martyr, a hero and a political prisoner. The Twitter hashtag #FreeTommyRobinson has gone viral, courtesy of the far-right's not insubstantial online community, and messages of support for the father of three from Luton has been posted on social media by such figures as Donald Trump's eldest son, the disgraced comedian Roseanne Barr, Meghan Markle's sister Samantha, even an advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister. So more than 500,000 people have signed an online petition demanding his release from jail, and hundreds of pro-Robinson protesters marched on Downing Street last weekend. Let me go over something about that petition. First of all, this is how little these people actually understand how our government works and what its powers actually are. Because that petition got cancelled. It got rejected. Why? Well, read the response it sent to them. It went, the Parliament does not have the power over the courts. They are solely responsible for these decisions. They said, however, if you want to change contempt of court laws, that would be an acceptable petition. So, first of all, they're sending a petition to the Houses of Parliament when they have no power to overturn these rulings, that is a court, and they can't even understand that, again, maybe they want to change contempt of court laws, but change them to what, though? That's the big question, because they don't understand the law. So, continues, yesterday's supporters gathered in Leeds where where he committed the offence. Another colossal march is planned for June the 9th. The abiding narrative from his supporters is a classic conspiracy theory, and oh boy, has it become so conspiracy-rific since then. That is that his imprisonment is part of an establishment plot. Because this is the narrative that Tommy Robinson has been spinning for the last sort of 2 or 3 years. That he is the enemy of the establishment and the establishment's out to get him. They claim that he was jailed after a politically motivated trial expedited at record speed. His conviction, they add, was kept secret by the state until the reporting ban was overturned. The intention is not just to silence him, they say, but to silence him forever. He will be likely murdered behind bars by Islamic extremists, with the prison authorities turn a blind eye. Britain has become a police state, etc., etc. Robinson, 35, has already criminal convictions for assault, drug possession, passport offences, and more recently, mortgage fraud. On this occasion, it was his transgression of Contempt of Court Act 1981 which landed him in jail. As we see in detail later, he was jailed for potentially prejudicing a case at Leeds Crown Court after filming both himself and people involved in the trial outside the court while it was taking place. The footage was streamed live on his Facebook page. Oh, and by the way, this was that trial was trial 2 of 3. So there was a full reporting ban on all 3 of these things. Because what Tommy Robinson did, he could have prejudiced the next case against them, which could have caused all 3 cases to collapse, because all 3 people who were the defendants in those cases could file for a mistrial. You know, we've gone over this before. The judge's decision to apply reporting restrictions on his conviction, restrictions which were challenged by media outlets and have now been lifted, led many of his new idolisers to claim that he's being treated as a special case. Yet this has been enough to turn him into the far right hottest caused celebrity in years. You only have to look at social media to see much of the support comes from America, where the so-called alt-right members of the gun lobby and white supremacists are trying to turn Robinson into their equivalent of Nelson Mandela in his prison cell on Robben Island. Leading the way was Donald Trump Jr., who likened Robinson's jailing to the British government's oppression, which led to the American Revolution of 1776. Don't let America follow in those footsteps, he urged his 2.84 million followers. TV's Roseanne Barr felt the same. He was just arrested, which is a death sentence. Please get involved, she tweeted last Saturday. Miss Barr, of course, had a rather eventful week herself after she wrote on social media 2 days later that the black former advisor to President Barack Obama looked as if a Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby. So the ABC network promptly cancelled her TV show, and Barr blamed her comment on her sleeping pills, among other things. Meanwhile, far-right Canadian activist Lauren Southern let rip with a 12-minute rant against Robinson's conviction on her YouTube channel, which has 500,000 followers. She said, "Do you immediately get sentenced to 13 months in prison over a minor arrest if it's not political?" she raged. "I live in a world where my friends are being arrested at every turn because of their political opinions. What kind of dystopian fucked up progressive future is this?" It should be noted that in passing, Miss Southern was barred from entering the UK in March on grounds of her distribution of racist material in Mr. Robinson's Bevershire hometown during a previous visit. The leaflets said, "Allah is gay God." She claimed that the provocation was a social experiment. A more practical suggestion for help for Mr. Robinson came from a German anti-immigrant MP, Peter Branston, who offered him a political asylum in Germany. "I would be willing to fly to the UK and have you sign the asylum papers in Hull Prison if you wish," he added this in his letter. This is a less expected contribution. The less expected contribution came from Hetania Naflif, I think that's how you say it, who said to be a social media advisor to the right wing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He tweeted, and was later deleted, "Free Tommy Robinson, he has done nothing wrong, and he has the right to express his freedom of speech." These were just more of the notable comments among thousands. And the US gun owners are tweeting that this is a case that they will defend their right to carry. This is why they defend their right to carry assault rifles. Many of these tweets are simply howls of hate. However, many of these people seem to be willing to see through the fog of their odious bigotry to understand the real reason why Robinson was jailed. Indeed, they see the case as a political persecution of a man who once likened Muslim babies to time bombs, and in 2011 threatened the entire Muslim community with the EDL retaliation in the event of an Islamist attack. So, who is Tommy Robinson? His real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, and he was born to an English father and an Irish immigrant mother, and grew up in Luton, where Muslims make up 25% of the population. He says he is always aware of tensions between the different communities. In 2004, he joined the deeply racist British National Party. The same year, he was jailed for 12 months for actual bodily harm after punching and kicking an off-duty policeman during a domestic incident. He duly lost his job as an aircraft engineer and retrained as a carpenter. So his rise to national notoriety came as a result of small demonstrations in 2009 in which Islamist protesters shouted terrorists and held placards saying Anglican soldiers should go to hell. The Butchers of Basra, as soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglican Regiment, paraded through Luton town centre after returning from Afghanistan. Robinson and the other local white football fans led a backlash against the protesters. So it was that the English Defence League came into being, with Robinson, then 26, as its leader. He was first mentioned by name in the national press the following year when the EDL supported a demonstration against a new mosque in Harrow, northwest London. Soon the EDL would have so-called divisions, likening to other football supporter groups across the country. The attitude was aggressive, the rhetoric profoundly anti-Muslim and often overtly racist. EDL marches usually ended in violence. Robinson said he had hoped that merely the idea that the EDL might visit a town would be enough to correct the multicultural backsliding by local authorities. Then in 2013 he suddenly quit the EDL. This led to a strange interlude. Robinson stepped down under the apparent auspices of the anti-radicalization charity, the Quilliam Foundation, which was then run by a former Islamic extremist. Robinson told a press conference that he left the EDL because of his disenfranchisement with the neo-Nazi infiltration. He wanted to bring harmony rather than hate. Yet he did everything but that, considering if you look at even the early days of the EDL, they pretty much continued straight through. But his relationship with Quilliam fell apart, and trouble soon followed him again as his criminal record grew. Already being convicted of football hooliganism, related affray in 2013, he was jailed for attempting to use someone else's passport to travel to the US to meet supporters. The next year he was imprisoned for 18 months for a £160,000 mortgage fraud. Last year he was filmed brawling at Royal Ascot. Since leaving the EDL, he has returned to his anti-Muslim activism. His Facebook account has over 85,000 followers. He tried unsuccessfully to establish a UK branch of the German anti-immigrant movement, PIGDA. Robinson's path to his latest stretch in jail began in May last year when he turned up outside Canterbury Crown Court with a cameraman from a far-right media organisation called Rebel Media. They claimed they wanted to speak to defendants at an ongoing trial, and Robinson was arrested for contempt of court. So the Contempt of Court Act is a cornerstone of British justice, designed to ensure defendants receive a fair trial. and breaches can be punishable by up to 2 years in jail. This applies to active court cases and restricts the publication of material that might prejudice a jury when it considers its verdict. Breaches like these restrictions are considered contempt, and serious ones can cause trials to collapse, which costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to the taxpayer. Of the Canterbury offence, Robinson was given a 3-month prison sentence, but he was suspended for 18 months and warned that he faced jail time if he repeated his actions. He did so outside Leeds Crown Court last week when he streamed to his Facebook account and the footage of himself and the people involved in the trial, which is subject to reporting restrictions, so the Mail cannot explain the details of the case. The footage lasted for about an hour and was watched over 250,000 times within hours of it being put online. Initially arrested outside the court for suspected breach of the peace, he was then charged with contempt of court and sentenced to 10 months. The suspended 3 months was also activated to make his jail term 13 months in total. The video footage was played to Judge Geoffrey Madsen as Robinson, who pled guilty to contempt, sat in the dock. Remember, he pled guilty, so he knows what he did was wrong. The judge told him, "I respect everyone's right to free speech. That is one of the most important rights we have. Within those rights come responsibilities. The responsibility to exercise that freedom of speech within the law. I'm not sure you appreciate the potential consequence of what you have done," he added. Not only was this a very long video, but I regard the seriousness of aggravating a feature that he was encouraging others to share it and then had it shared widely. That is the nature of contempt. The judge initially imposed reporting restrictions on Robinson's convictions, fearing that the publicity would also carry the risk of seriously prejudicing the ongoing trial at Leeds Crown Court. This was lifted on Tuesday after a media challenge, although only after media outlets outside the UK had reported on Robinson's jailing. The reporting restrictions had also effectively prevented UK media from properly reporting the reasons for a march by Robinson supporters on Downing Street last weekend demanding his release. Robinson's arrest and sentencing took place within a space of only 5 hours, a speed which has excited conspiracy theorists. But this is not unusual in such contempt cases. Take, for example, that involving David Davis, 39, who was imprisoned last year for a similar offence. Davis had broadcast live footage of a person giving evidence in a dangerous driving trial at Cardiff Crown Court using his mobile phone. He was arrested, and that same day the judge sentenced him to 28 days behind bars. So what now for Robinson? The fear is that he will capitalise on his newfound notoriety online, where he remains a dangerous influence. Just ask those worshippers who were outside the Finsbury Park Mosque in North London last year when Darren Osborne drove a van into them, killing one. At Osborne's trial, the court heard that he spent hours online looking at Twitter and Facebook for racist material and followed the output religiously of Tommy Robinson. Now that Tommy Robinson is trending online again, it is deeply worrying to think that another Darren Osborne might be inspired by this individual thinking, for him to be another heroic victim of criminal injustice. So holy shit! Let me just say this: good job, Richard Pendlebury, for calling this out and calling it like it is, because you are right. He is a complete racist thug. And to people who say, "Oh, he's not racist," here's the thing: Tommy Robinson classically knows that if he goes out and says something actual racist, then he will turn people off and he won't gain any support whatsoever. However, if he says, for example, as so often his defenders like to claim, that Islam is not a race and that he is only criticising the religion, not people's race, this gives people the excuse then to attack these people And what you end up with is basically anti-Muslim rhetoric. This is nothing new. This is what a lot of these far-right groups, particularly in America, have started doing. What they do is they don't attack the race. Because again, they'll get called racist. What they do is they then, attack the religion, because then that gives them a veiled sense of somewhat legitimacy. Because then they can say, "Oh, I'm just criticizing the religion. I'm not talking about their race." So, but this leads into dangerous stuff, because you've got people like Darren Osborne. And remember, last year, there was one far-right terrorist attack actually carried out by Darren Osborne, a guy who religiously followed Tommy Robinson, and to quote his wife, would read out Robinson's tweets religiously. So you see why this guy is a problem, because if you let him continue with this stuff unchallenged, and don't not call him out for the stuff that he's saying is racist, then you end up with people like Darren Osborne. That's the unfortunate truth. And well, you got to think the biggest thing, and this is quite racist to say. You've only got to look at one of the videos he did last year, where he just turns around and just gestures basically down this street and just goes, "All these people on this street are enemy combatants." What are you meant to think to that? But it's so overtly racist, and it's the same thing for him chasing these the Muslim paedophile things. It gives him an excuse to basically paint every single male Muslim out in the UK as paedophiles or as potential paedophiles, because that is his entire intention for this. It's not a secret. It's very obvious, but yet a lot of people fall into this trap. So there you have it. That's the last time I'm going to do anything on Tommy Robinson specifically, because I don't think you can find any other ways to call him, what he is. He's a racist thug. But I will be doing, certainly maybe in a couple of weeks' time, a video on what all these other people have been doing. So I've been watching Sticks and Hammer 666, The Iconoclast. I'm looking to see if Sargon does anything other than his Muslim prison gang video. And basically just seeing what the other far-right YouTube channels are going to do about this, because some of the stuff they've been putting out is hilarious to the point of parody would be a kind word, but stupidity is completely another. For example, you have British far-right YouTube channels who have basically been saying for years that, oh, these foreigners need to follow our laws, they're not respecting our Western values. Yet here you have Tommy Robinson breaking, as was said by that judge, a cornerstone of English law, and denying the right to these defendants of a fair trial, which is pretty much a Western value, which these people go on about all the time. So, look forward to that, because it's going to be fun.